Today we're going to learn how I did this makeup. All right, I started with the eyes, of course. Went in with yellow and then brown. I went in with two shades, kind of a yellowy brown and then a regular brown. And then I'm going with a dark brown around the edge, just around the edge of the iris. Now I'm going in with like kind of an apple green. You'll see I use a Q-tip every so often. If I feel like I'm not getting any more color to lay down, I will massage the pencil down into the eye, and then that takes the wax off the top so you can add more color. Here I put in the black pupil, but my pupil on the left side got a little too off center, so I had to erase a little bit and redo some of the color and then re-put the pupil in. Here I'm doing the white on the sides of the eye. Now I'm using a blue to go over the top waterline and a brown to go over the bottom. Now I'm using my gel pen to put in the little dots to highlight the eye. Now we move on to the makeup. Now here I'm doing kind of an ombre effect, so I'm doing the same thing I do with my markers. I have several different shades, and I'm doing like the lightest shade of yellow first, and then I'm going to go in with a darker shade of yellow. When I finish the darker shade, I go back to the lighter shade and kind of blend the edges. Next I go in with a apple bright green and do the same thing I did before. Now this time I'm moving further out as I do the color, and like I said, after I get done with that, I'm going to go back in with the yellow and blend the edge again. I also did that apple green ombre in towards the eye as well as out towards the edge. And then I go back through my colors and blend those edges again. Now I'm going in with a slightly darker green, and I'm getting closer to the edge of the makeup and then closer to the eye with each color as I go. And then you'll see me go back and blend the edge of that again as well. Now I'm going to work on the shadows that already exist, and I'm just making sure that there's still shadow where shadow should be in an eye area. Right now I'm using a colorless blender to just kind of blend everything and get a nice edge. And now I'm going in with my black to do her mascara and her eyelashes. You can see right here I accidentally put her lashes on the wrong way, so I had to erase and go back and put them in the right way. All right, here we start tracing all the makeup on. I'm going around with my green, and then in a minute I go back in with my white and just do the insides of the circles, make sure that there's nice and white in there. There's no residue of green. Now do the same thing on the other eye. All right, here I'm picking colors for the lips. I'm going to pick 3 shades, a light, a medium, and a dark. I start with the dark and go into the darkest areas of the mouth. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm just using a light touch, and I'm going to build my color slow so that my pencils don't get too varnished and have too much wax on there. All right, I'm using the dark around the edge, and now I'm going in with my medium color and filling in the inner part of the lip. Just slowly building color. And then I keep switching back and forth between my light and my dark and just slowly building color up over the lip. Now I'm about to go in with my cotton again and just kind of take some of the wax off so I can add some more color. Tracing the dark around the edge again here in a second. And I used a yellow to just kind of highlight the center of the lip. Now we're using black to trace her stitches across her face. Here I got a little out of the line, so I'm erasing it and trying to get it a little bit sharper of a point. There we go. I started to try to do some white highlights, and then I realized that it wasn't showing up at all, so I didn't need to do the white highlights. And I moved on to just tracing the makeup. I used a dark green here, and I used a lighter green on her forehead. Now we're going to move to her nose here in just a second. And I just used black. And this is a little bit hard to see, but as I was working on that, I decided I wanted to make sure the highlight came through on her nose good. So I used my Caran d'Ache white to highlight the nose there, and then pulled the black in around the edges. And then I used the Caran d'Ache white again to kind of blend so it goes kind of gray to black to give her that good highlight on her nose. And then just kind of straightening up the points there. And then white in between them, just trying to make sure that they stay really sharp and clean. All right, I used 3 colors of green on her chin, and I did it the same way that I did the eyes, just, you know, building the colors and then blending them together so that you get a nice soft blend on the leaves there. It's really important you keep a good sharp tip on your pencil when you're doing this so that you can get those tiny little details in there without them being too muddy. And that's about it, and here's our finished product.